How does the brain decide who we fall in love with? What I'm about to tell you, you won't find anywhere else online. That's because when you Google falling in love, you'll either find laboratory theories that don't work in practice or personal stories that offer no clear solutions. If you watch this video to the end, you won't be the same. Falling in love isn't just obsessive thoughts about someone. It's a process that penetrates a person's brain and body at a chemical level. Falling in love is regulated by dopamine, a substance that gives us motivation and desire. This mechanism, of course, doesn't just work in male-female relationships. Your hobbies and interests also emerged under the influence of dopamine. You have a favorite activity: fishing, hitting the gym, playing video games, maybe something else. You were able to fall in love with it because you can extract dopamine from it. You get a kick out of the process and the results. But it wasn't always like that. When you first went to the gym, installed a game, or went fishing with your dad, your state was more or less calm. You weren't overly enthusiastic. You just decided to try it. You fell in love with your hobby gradually. Remember that moment when you first caught a big fish, the day you saw your abs in the mirror, or defeated a strong opponent in a tough game. That's it. The beginning of changes in your hormonal system. Along with the first achievement, you received a powerful hormonal reward for your actions. And this is just the beginning of the engagement process. Many more such rewards lie ahead. It's just that hobbies are simpler than relationships. Because you can choose hobbies wisely, so your dopamine sources not only bring pleasure, but also benefits. A healthy compromise between enjoyment and usefulness. But in relationships, using the same principle is unacceptable. Why? In the case of hobbies, you have a dispenser. You regulate the process. The fisherman decides when to fish, the athlete decides when to go to the gym, and the gamer chooses when to sit down for another match. You decide when to pursue your hobby. You choose when and through what source to get dopamine. And with a woman? With a woman, it won't work that way. The dopamine dispenser is no longer in your hands, it's in hers. But you'll only realize this later, when you feel you've fallen in love. It's useless to lie to yourself that everything is under control. Neural pathways in the brain of a person in love quickly arrange themselves so that a specific woman becomes your key source of dopamine. Key, which means that from this moment on, you don't decide anything. She decides. You don't control the process controls you. Almost all key relationship queries on the internet can be divided into 3 groups. First, what to do if a woman rarely texts, doesn't want a relationship, has grown cold, dumped you, and left. That is, the man has been deprived of dopamine, and withdrawal begins. The second group of questions: how to make someone fall in love, how to meet someone, how to flirt. That is, the man wants to find and gain access to a dopamine source. The third group, the rarest: what to do if the attraction to a woman has disappeared. The man has lowered his dopamine concentration. Unfortunately, universal vaccinations against the madness of falling in love haven't been invented yet. They don't exist. Even worse, society doesn't protect you. On the contrary, people around you even encourage love psychosis. When you fall in love, friends congratulate you. Even before you fell in love, you experienced romantic drama hundreds of times: books, films, TV series, games. In each of these stories, you put yourself in the protagonist's shoes, empathized with them, you went through all those tearful situations, and thereby formed your preferences in terms of relationships. Many people don't understand the problem with relationships just for the high. People reason like this: you just need to choose a woman with a beautiful appearance and the right content. And then everything will be okay, a perpetual motion machine, an eternal source of my dopamine. Yes, it would be great if it were that simple, but the problem lies in the very chemistry of your body. A high concentration of dopamine makes receptors less sensitive. This means that even if there's a lot of the substance itself, the emotions will constantly weaken. In response to weakened emotions, the body will begin to reduce hormones, and the feeling will eventually lead to a dead end. That's why people who get together without a powerful emotional charge at the start usually stay together longer. And now, the most interesting part. Why? Why does one person always suffer in the end if dopamine decreases in both the woman and the man? Yes, dopamine decreases in both partners simultaneously, but there's always one partner who sobers up from the love psychosis faster. This person begins to take the stronger position. And what does that mean? It means they no longer get such a strong kick. For one of you, the relationship eventually turns into just a habit, and this person gradually, not immediately, becomes more capricious, resentful, demanding, starts comparing you to others, and so on. Doubting. Now you understand where women's antics, desires, and demands come from. It's compensation for lowered dopamine. So two people meet, dreaming of falling in love. It would seem they want the same thing, to get as much pleasure as possible in the present moment. But the more pleasure at the beginning, the less chance of an adequate continuation. At that moment, when it happens, you'll feel that the relationship is threatened, which means you'll only fall more deeply in love. Your emotions don't weaken. On the contrary, they only gain strength. After all, any positive moment against a backdrop of constant negativity, doubts, and worries brings a new dose of dopamine. It's like coming in from the winter cold to warmth and having some tea. Instant bliss. But if it hadn't been so cold outside, the pleasure wouldn't have been as desired. Such is human nature, waiting for summer and winter, and waiting for winter's chill and summer's heat. It seems foolish. Enjoy what you have, right? But we need what we don't have, or what we might lose. Conclusion. The higher your demand for pleasure from a woman, the more often you'll find yourself in a weak position over time. Let's say you both fall in love. There are only two outcomes. Either you cool down first and start suffering from a lack of pleasure, or the woman starts turning up her nose. That's it. It's important to understand. In dopamine-driven relationships, there will sooner or later be swings. One moment everything is great, the next everything is terrible, and the end seems very near. The thing is, hormone release requires not only positive emotions. To be intensely happy, powerful stress is also necessary. This, again, works not only in relationships. A caught fish motivates a fisherman only at the very beginning. Later, when he leaves the pond with nothing one day, it stimulates him to invest much more. The person tells himself, okay, that's enough. I'll go get myself new, effective tackle and bait, or even better, everything at once. To keep dopamine levels high, it's necessary to periodically create a deficit. And the one who experiences this deficit begins to invest more and more in anticipation of a greater return, a greater reward in the future. In dopamine-driven relationships, everything starts well because the initial emotion provides strong motivation. But in the long run, power always goes to the more capricious, problematic, and destructive partner, because the one who controls the letdown controls the emotional reward, and the one who chases emotions starts investing even more, like an athlete who, with burning eyes, pays a lot of money for jars and boxes of muscle-building accelerators. As soon as you go for the dopamine prize in the form of a woman, you immediately lose control. Generally, there are only 5 dopamine peaks in relationships. The first bright emotional moment, which can actually happen even before the relationship, because this moment is a simple rejection. The girl refuses or hints at refusing, and immediately, right at that minute, it begins to seem that a great reward is hidden behind this obstacle. Your brain perceives the situation as if you achieve reciprocity from this particular girl, you will receive a solid dopamine reward. This is the situation where a man romanticizes a woman to the extreme. Want to manage relationships? Remember, if you put all your eggs in one woman's basket, you've already lost. You've lost the right to make mistakes. Models fall on the catwalk from fear, even though they only walk 15 steps, and you're trying to make someone fall in love while under stress, a strong position starts with doubts. Should I get my ex back? Is this girl right for me? The one who doubts is in control. The confident one has already lost. But here's the paradox. The person in love doesn't doubt and weakens, and if you forcibly lower her importance, you lose the high of being in love. Conclusion: high dopamine equals high stress. Stop being a buyer who falls in love with the shine of a car without checking its technical condition. A sober assessment will save you from mistakes. If a person truly suits you, they won't become worse because of it. The second dopamine peak is the beginning of the relationship, the first 6 months, sometimes longer. This is the time when you enjoy each other, and you once again, like a bobblehead, believe that it will always be like this, that you finally found it. The third dopamine peak is when the woman's mutual consent was hard-won. You put in a lot of effort. Finally, she agrees to a relationship, or to live together, or is ready to get married. You instantly receive a hormonal reward. Remember that feeling now, when you score the winning goal at the end of a soccer match. Remembered it? Now multiply those emotions by 10 and stretch them out a bit in time. That's roughly what you'll feel. Yes, it's a high. The fourth dopamine peak is when the woman starts to distance herself from you, argues. You unconsciously understand there's a risk of losing that dopamine boost now, and you start clinging, panicking. This moment can be called a turning point. Your internal state at this minute will completely determine the future of your relationship, and there are only two options here. First, the woman acts difficult, distances herself, creates tension. You instantly lower the value, quality, rating, you can call it whatever you want, of your relationship with her to a minimum. You don't need to argue instantly, in that very second, break up, leave. This is a process that happens inside you, inside your head. These might be subtle external manifestations, but believe me, the woman will definitely notice them, and she will come closer over time. At this moment, you are in control. You will still consider whether to restore the credit of trust to its former level, or if she needs to earn it. So we once again come to the conclusion that you can only influence a woman through your internal state, and not by pretense. But the second scenario is more popular. The woman distances herself, and the value of communication with her not only doesn't decrease, it starts to grow. No advice or hints will help a person here. Of course, maintaining balance isn't that difficult. But when you are in love with a woman, she can influence not only dopamine but also stress hormones. She can easily make you experience fear, anger, resentment, jealousy. And the fifth emotional peak in dopamine-driven relationships is the final disconnection from the source of pleasure. This is a sad breakup. This, by the way, is precisely the argument why you can and should extract dopamine from hobbies, but not from relationships. A hobbyist isn't tied to a specific place, not tied to a specific object of passion. A gamer can always download another game. An athlete can go to another gym, or even change sports. A fisherman can go to another body of water. But dopamine in relationships is always tied to one person. Question: why is everything so wonderful and good at the beginning of dopamine-driven relationships? Everything starts without any effort. I'll explain. The initial dopamine is due to the unpredictability of each partner's actions. That is, you can just see each other, just meet and enjoy yourselves. There is a certain tension associated with the fact that the partner is not yet fully explored. Their actions can be unpredictable. Neither the man nor the woman has guarantees of long-lasting love, no guarantees of devotion. But what if someone loses interest tomorrow, gets disappointed, cancels a date? This means that in such conditions dopamine goes up. But what happens next? You get to know each other. Over time, you become predictable. And that means no matter how you look at it, dopamine-fueled love starts to fade. Conclusion: you can only fall in love with a woman who has dumped you, stood you up, or created absolute tension. Or, and this is a very important point, She is potentially capable of doing so, and you know it. That is, in your relationship, everything might be fine for now, but you feel that she could snap at any moment. The question arises, why don't people understand this? Doesn't anyone want to break this vicious cycle? The answer is that wanting isn't enough. Ask any man, do you want to be in a strong position in a relationship? Do you want to be the leader? Almost everyone will say, of course I do. But that's not true. Everyone wants to be rich, few want to work hard. Everyone wants to be leaders, but few want to take responsibility, to be accountable for something. Everyone wants to be in a strong position, but few are willing to sacrifice the feeling of being in love. And sacrifice it you certainly will. When it comes to changing goals, changing worldview, it's not about lowering significance a little, not about preparing for a date like a tough climb. It's about a complete, radical change of priorities. Incidentally, falling in love has long been included in the International Classification of Diseases. From the perspective of symptoms, it's a neurosis. That's it. And what does a person suffering from neurosis do? Denies it. It's human nature to rationalize one's deviations. It's a defense mechanism, finding justification for any desire and action. We are all susceptible to this. We are all prone to rationalizing our impulsive and illogical actions. You constantly encounter this. You see a person committing an obvious folly and then somehow explaining it to themselves, why it's okay, why it's permissible. They say some correct and noble words to justify blatant idiocy. The same thing happens with falling in love. We are all potential love addicts. If you want a normal relationship, you'll have to work at it. First, you need to be without a relationship for a while. In some cases, a break of even several years is needed to calm all these passions within yourself, for them to subside, so that you forget what love psychosis is, so that you don't compare passionate dopamine adventures with normal, adequate, kind relationships. Second is abstinence. It's the only tool that mentally strengthens you in the realm of relationships, practically the only one. Third point is practicing communication with different women. Not just one random woman? Yes, with many. To learn the full range of personalities and situations. When you understand that there is no female mystery, exclusivity, or secretiveness, you won't need to strain so much to control that feeling of falling in love within yourself. It will simply stop arising. Thus, falling in love is a powerful chemical process controlled by dopamine, which deprives a person of control and makes them dependently strive for a source of pleasure. This dependence creates an imbalance in relationships, where power is gained by the partner who can manage the emotional swings of reward and deprivation. To build healthy and equal relationships, one must consciously work on oneself, reducing the importance of the dopamine high. This requires abstinence, sober assessment of the partner, and communication practice to dispel the myth of exclusivity. Only then can one break free from the vicious cycle and cease to be a hostage to one's own biochemistry. Thank you all very much for watching.